Now, where did I put it? Here it is. Welcome to the Toolbox, where we discuss the tools we utilize every day. Yours to use or toss. It's up to you. But I hope you enjoy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Tools for the Toolbox. I am Chance Burles, as you know, and I have another outstanding guest for you here today, and we're going to let him introduce himself, as I always do, with who are you, and what is your military background?
Yeah, so I'm Chase. Thank you again for having me on your podcast. It's a great pleasure to be here, and definitely cool to talk to the community and just kind of get different stories. But so for myself, I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school, served 5 years. I was a electro-optical ordnance repair with 3-5, which is a infantry battalion. Got out about 2 years ago, and then due to peacetime, I was fortunate enough to go on 2 deployments, but they were kind of just booze cruises, just cruising around, having a good time, drinking some beer and different cool places.
That's a good deployment, man.
Yeah.
We don't really get those deployments here up north. It's unfortunately if we go anywhere, it's usually not a pleasant place to be. But so you did it for 5 years, and what do you do now? You've been out for a couple of years, right?
Now, I switched my mindset from being that tough guy attitude of trying to be strong physically to trying to be strong mentally and build on my education. So the next hurdle and goal is I'm in school currently to become an electrical engineer. So kind of hand in hand with my MOS. That's turning out to pose a lot of challenges to overcome that are completely different from what I'm used to. But overall, it's a great experience so far.
Okay. Well, what was it? Just the fact that you were already in that kind of field that you went to engineering, or is it do you have a desire to do something with that, or what's up?
Yeah, so it's kind of both, I would say. So I've always had a mindset of just making things and kind of curious to see how things work. If that might be guns, just to look at them, see how different mechanics of the gun kind of operate and work, building structures, all of that. So then from there, I knew I was going to be an engineer. Didn't know really what field of engineer I wanted to go into, and then being a optics tech in the Marine Corps, that's kind of definitely directed me toward a electrical engineering degree, just for the fact of kind of job experience. Already have job experience, and then just having at least a basic foundation of what electrical engineering is going to be.
That's it's a little bit outside my bailiwick for sure. I can wire things. I can go from my fuse box, put an outlet in, put a light in, go back to the fuse box, and that's about as far as I can build stuff with electricals. But I much prefer C4. I like taking things apart rather than putting them back together again.
Yeah, that's true.
How was your transition? When you got out of the Marine Corps, I don't know much about the Marine Corps transitionary program, if there is one. Do you just hand your stuff and peace out, boys?
Yeah, basically. So it's a kind of rude awakening. So when you join, you have all these people here there to walk you through everything, take you step by step. When you get out, it's you're on your own. You have to figure everything out yourself. If you don't make it, then you just get held until you make it. So that was definitely okay, well, this is kind of my start of my next journey. Because even in the military in general, and especially in the Marine Corps, you definitely have your hand held a lot of the times. You're getting told when to wake up, what to do during the day, and all that. So that was my first introduction of what the world's gonna be after getting out. And then my transition, it was definitely challenging. It's probably the most challenging thing I've done in my life so far. And I've tried to pinpoint exactly why it's so challenging. I think a little bit of that is feeling lost in the world, kind of self-isolation, because you don't have that community around you anymore. Definitely a lot of mental problems of I'm not good enough. And once you get that self-isolation, it just kind of rolls downhill, snowballs, where it's you don't have a support, and then you just kind of start thinking and get in your head. So I mean, that was definitely challenging. I lost a lot of really, really good friends from suicide to that transition period. So I mean, it's definitely really challenging. But luckily, I had a good foundation around me to get me through that time. And then after meeting Nate, just a couple months ago, I mean, he's definitely been a huge hand in kind of helping me find my purpose again.
Yeah, Nate's awesome. He's just such a cool dude. I'm really glad I got introduced to him through other friends as well, and I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna hang out with this guy for a while.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's just, like you said, a solid dude. I mean, you can see, I mean, as soon as you meet him, his heart, his intentions are in the right place. He's like totally for everyone, wanting to help people. I mean, I definitely got lucky because I met him through my parents. He's a customer at their store, so that's kind of how
nice.
I met him, and sat down with him once, and I was like, yeah, like this dude is rock solid for sure.
And he keeps you laughing the whole time. Like it never stops, never turns off.
Yeah.
He's just
I mean,
always,
he's
like
big burly man, and he just starts splitting off all these jokes, and you're like, what?
Oh man. Okay, so if you could go back a couple of years, if you could go talk to yourself at the beginning of your transition out, what's one piece of advice you could give yourself to make it easier, better, faster, whatever?
Definitely don't take life too serious. Obviously try. Do everything you can in your power to do well, but at the same time, like don't take things to heart to the point that it's actually affecting sleep, kind of physical health. And then I think also the biggest part is to branch out of the comfort zone of where you're at right now. Do things that scare you, and reach out to people. I mean, because I know when I was struggling, I tried to reach out to people, talk to old friends, and then I didn't message them for a day, and I'm like, I failed them. And that's not necessarily the case. I mean, they're busy. You have a busy schedule. If it takes a day to respond back to them, then so be it. But just don't feel like you failed them just because you haven't responded back to them for like a day or two. I mean, keep that connection open and that doorway open for both giving help and receiving help.
Yeah, that's a great point. I came up with this a little while ago. I was talking with my doc, and we figured out. I like to use this term or this little adage: grace, not slack. Right? You give yourself a little bit of grace. If you're actually trying, and you have a busy day, you don't complete everything you want to complete. Okay, cool. Like you had a really solid day. You got most of the stuff done. Cool. Whatever. Get the rest done tomorrow. Versus slack of, I'm not really going to do that today. I don't feel up to it. I don't blah, blah, blah. Like when you give yourself slack, you just start to fall behind. But you still have to give yourself grace because you're not going to be able to complete everything all the time. It's one of my favorite little adages that I keep it in my head because it's true. When you get into those, self-deprecating moments, especially when you expect to do something, if you have a preconceived notion of like, oh, I'm going to call this guy, and then I'm going to do that thing, and then I'm going to finish that, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to get all that stuff. Shit happens some days, right? Like, yeah, my kid got sick one day. Dang.
Yeah, I really like that. And I mean, especially with school, I mean, I'm learning that with even just this week, I completed almost all of my assignments by Wednesday, and then it came back around that I did one assignment in the wrong format, and the other assignment I had to readjust, and just all these assignments kept coming back to me of like, oh, like getting stressed because I feel like I got everything done, really busted my butt, and it's like I knew that I was putting out as much as I could, but to also, like you said, give yourself some grace of like, okay, am I doing everything that I know I possibly can? Yes. Then it's fine. I'm just going to keep working on it, but don't beat myself up over it.
Yeah. And it's really hard, man. Like when I went to school, I was surrounded by, there was 45 people in the class. There was 2 guys. I was one of them. And the rest were, I think there was maybe 4 of them that were over 20. So it was like 19-year-old girls. And I'm 35-year-old Master Corporal Burles, right? And I'm fucking walking around. Oh, man, it was painful. Painful. Had I been there when I was a 19-year-old guy, that would have been great. But
No, it'd be a heyday, yeah.
but not so much for a 35-year-old married Massacre of Burles. It's not the best place for me. So let's talk about strength. You and I were chatting earlier. You said, what you've been using throughout your time is inner strength. So let's talk a little bit about that. What do you mean by inner strength?
So I feel like inner strength is just a byproduct of your everyday actions and how you carry out your thoughts throughout the day. So for me, I know something's wrong if I don't have the motivation to go to the gym every day. So I know if I keep a solid, I guess you could say, regimen or routine of like wake up, make my bed. If I have some sort of negative mindset, to kind of switch your mindset into like, sure, this situation might not be the best, but what am I grateful for within that situation? Try and just have that positive mindset. I think through a healthy schedule and a dynamic in your life where you're trying to constantly make progress in your life, that will all accumulate into habit building, and that habit building will then form into inner strength. Because I mean, if someone has some sort of stress in their life, and I mean, we're all guilty of this, but going into finding some sort of habit that's kind of self-destructive in any way, shape, or form, then that's kind of degrading your inner strength instead of trying to overcome it in healthy ways. And I mean, it's hard sometimes because there's times where it's like, man, like I know I need to get to the gym to kind of give a little bit of like relief from stress, but I don't want to, or I have all these other school assignments I have to do. And it's just like, take time to actually do what do what you need to do, and you know what you need to do. And like I said, just build up those habits and kind of overall build up as a byproduct your inner strength, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best thing is that you have to learn. This is something that no one ever teaches you, is that you have to take time, right? You can never make time. You know, a lot of people you hear all the time, oh, I don't have time for that, or oh, I won't be able to complete that. There's not enough time. But you actually have to make it. Like you have to specifically block it out and go, this time is for me. And if that time is at the gym or on the jiu-jitsu mats for me, or sitting on the couch for 10 minutes and just taking a breather, okay, cool, right? But you got to take that time, and it is that's a hard skill to learn, man.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it's super common where you hear all these people and you say like, hey, why don't you do this? And it's like, well, I can't do that. And that just by saying I can't do that is already a self-destructive kind of answer. And from what I learned is, instead of saying I can't do it, you say, why should I, or why should I not do it? So you kind of analyze the situation, see kind of the pros and cons with that, and then if the pros are kind of outweigh the cons, and that's when you go ahead and isolate time to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the ability to recognize whether something is helpful or not is, again, it's a skill set, right? You have to build on. You have to learn how to do it. You got to be able to assess situations, and it is not a easy form. I tell my boys this all the time when I'll say, hey, I need you to do this, and they're like, I can't do it, and you're like, you can't fly unassisted, right? You can't breathe underwater unassisted, but you can put your pants on, right?
Yeah.
you can get this done. And then I heard, I was reading something online at one point, and it was a video, and it's not a question of can't, it's a question of you don't know how yet. And for a lot of people, that's what it is, right? They just they don't see a way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And what you're saying is exactly what a lot of people need to do. Look at it, assess it. How do I get from point A to point B? Oh, well, it looks impossible. Okay. How do you get from point A to point A and a half, right? Like, break it down into smaller steps and then see where it goes from there. It's mind-blowing sometimes that we don't get taught this as children, which is why I try to push it on my kids. Like, just figure it out, piecemeal it out, and break it down into smaller steps. I mean, we do this in the military all the time too, right? Like, if you got a patrol or reconnaissance or, you know, whatever mission you got to do, you have to break it down. You can't just say, go and take that town. Have fun, right?
Yeah, it's like, how do you do that? Yeah, I mean, even with the best analogy I have that was prevalent is boot camp. I mean, if you look at, okay, well, you start boot camp and then 3 months later you're done, like, you're going to get so stressed out, you're going to get weighed, and it's usually the people that don't break it down into smaller steps that either don't make it or have a very difficult time with overcoming boot camp. And so it's like, for me, you just look at it as like, okay, like going from breakfast to lunch, and then, okay, well, I got that done. I'm going to go from lunch to dinner now. I got that done. Well, shoot, I already got a day done. Might as well do another day. And you just break it down to steps where you know, basically, like, it's more feasible goals to set. And I also have learned and was told, it's like, if you look at the full situation, I mean, it's going to be super stressful. You have to go into it a little blindly, but still have some sort of context of what's going on, but definitely jumping into it blindly in a certain aspect isn't always the worst thing.
100%. I remember when I got to basic, it was so there's a whole story to this, and it actually set me up really well for basic training in general. So my sister and my family and my friends decided that they were going to give me my going away party the night before I left for basic. So I got hammered. My sister was bartending.
Yes.
I lost count after like 19 shots. There was lots of stuff. It was bad. My mom had to like basically pour me into the car at fucking 5 a.m. to get me on my flight, because our basic's on the other side of the country, right? So we're like, I gotta go to Montreal to go do that. And I showed up in Montreal, still sick as a dog. I filled up 3 puke bags on the flight
There's
to
no
Montreal.
other way to do it. Yeah, there's no
Like,
other way
it's
to do
just
it.
so bad. Super hungover, still partially drunk, and I show up on my first day to basic, and we had to take this double-decker bus to get from the airport to basic training, and the drivers in Montreal are sketchy, to say the best. So this bus is like rocking back and forth the whole way, and I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna die. And we arrived at the Mega at the front door, and I fucking threw myself out of the bus, threw up on the sidewalk right at the beginning. Everybody else had grabbed their stuff and walked into the building, and I'm out there just hurling my guts out, right? And then I finally finished. The bus is gone. My stuff's on the ground. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll just go inside then. And I grabbed my stuff and I walked in. And there was this sergeant yelling at everybody in French. And I'm like, I think I might be in the wrong building. Like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what's happening. Everyone's lined up along the wall, and I'm just wandering in with civvies. And I walked right up to him, and I think I shocked him more than anything. And I'm like, hey, man, where do I go?
Yes.
And he just went, are you an officer? And I'm like, no. Are you English? I'm like, yes. And he's like, that room. I'm like, roger that. And I just walked off, right? But I spent that first weekend just so hungover and so sick. And the first meal I got, I think, was something carbonara, like penne carbonara or something like that. So it's like super rich, thick. It did not sit in my stomach well at all. It was so bad. But every day I just I kept waking up like, okay, what's next? This is a really bad start. Hopefully the first day will be better than this. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. So I was never really looking at the length of the course. I never had a chance to really take it all in, because I was so sick that first day that I was kind of playing catch up, as you were saying, right? Like you kind of got to go into a little bit blindly and just like, over here. Okay. We're lifting stuff. Okay. Now I'm marching. Okay. Like you just, whatever's happening right now is happening, and you kind of deal with it. It's a great way to look at life. It doesn't work for everything.
Yeah. No, yeah, especially, I mean, if there's something really important or big, impactful that needs to happen, obviously analyze the situation a little more. But yeah, I mean, especially just going through the motions. I mean, still having passion and a drive to do everything well, but just kind of go through the motions of it. I mean, that definitely I've learned helps me mitigate a lot of my anxiety and stress through life, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, especially just like I know I had the hardest time going out in like large spaces in public right after I got out. Huge anxiety, and so I learned it's like just focus on the smaller things, focus on like one person, kind of immediate like threat, and that kind of helped me. I mean, it's the anxiety is still definitely there, but it's kind of it forces my brain to activate and kind of focus on something else rather than anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. My doc worked with me for a long time for that. Any sort of groupings of people, I have, like, my back goes to a wall without even thinking about it. I just kind of like, and I immediately start scanning the room. It's not a great thing, but my psychologist and I worked through that for quite a while. And she eventually started asking me this question was, what's the likelihood? Like, what are the odds of it actually of something bad happening right now? Is it possible? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Are you prepared for it? Mostly. Okay. Like, to the best of your ability. Like, we can't concealed carry up here in Canada, so I can't do anything with that. But I'm physically capable. I'm still watching a room. I'm not expecting bad things to happen anymore, but I can still recognize that they do. I can still prepare for it. I can still set myself up for it. I can sit in a place that isn't as, stressful. I don't sit with my back directly to a door because I don't like it. That's fine. But am I sitting in the back corner all like not anymore. No. Used to, but not anymore. But it's still, again, it's a skill set, right? You have to, as you said earlier, you have to put yourself out there. You have to step out of your comfort zone just a little bit. And then do it again. And then do it again.
Yeah, it's just that gradual build-up. Because, I mean, if you jump way out of your comfort zone, then, I mean, it might be too much for you. And it might be like, I mean, you'll still learn through it, but I mean, it's going to be better to jump out of your comfort zone just a little bit at a time, and just like anything in life, just build up from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find that, because you're doing the tactical games, right?
Yeah.
You're training up for that. Do you find it's the same training for like the competition side of it in your mindset versus like now versus when you were in?
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely different techniques and shooting styles. I mean, it's actually completely different because, I mean, at least for the Marine Corps, you learn, it's mostly long distance shooting. Well, at least the full Marine Corps gets long distance shooting training. It's like 100 yards, 300, or I can't even remember now. It's like 2, 3, and 500 yards. And then obviously being in the infantry battalion a little bit, then you start working on close quarter stuff, machine guns, assaulting. But I would say it's completely different, but it's the same aspect of having fun at the range, but looking at it as an important like job you're doing. Because I know, and this is the thing, it's like to each his own. Like if someone just wants to go to the range and have fun, then they can do it. So see a lot of people just blowing rounds down range, not really working on any skills, which is fine. But it's like, for me, by focusing on certain movements and skills of shooting, that's definitely reminds me of being in the Marine Corps, of you actually have a purpose driven of your shooting instead of just going out there and kind of wasting ammo.
Yeah, that's a tough one because I really love doing that. I like dumping mags and I like putting rounds down range. It's just fun.
I mean, it's definitely, I'm the same way. It's like there's definitely a time where it's like, okay, you know what, 30 rounds, it's going to be gone.
I'm really bad for that. I got a custom AR that I built myself, and I'm like, I love the thing, but it's a little off-putting for the others on the range because I got a really sweet break on it, but it puts all the gas on the sides, so it barks like super loud, and the other people on the range are never very happy about me sitting there like, bah, 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 bah.
Oh yeah, I
It's,
mean they can get, especially that concussive blast from those muzzle brakes. I mean, but the best part about it, I mean, it stinks that the other people get a little annoyed, but that keeps your muzzle flat. I mean, pretty darn well. You can't beat
oh
muzzle
yeah,
brakes in regards to that. Yeah, I just
yeah, yeah.
got 2 ARs built, and I've learned real quick that they are money traps. That's for sure. It's like, oh well, I have a couple extra dollars here. I could either save it or put like the money toward gun parts. So yeah, gun parts
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's the worst part about customization or the ability to customize things is the fact that you want to then customize things.
Oh
Just
yeah,
keep doing it over and over. Like, ooh, I want that. Ooh, I like one of those, and maybe one of those
yeah.
too. That'd be nice. It's so bad. So, do you find that your mindset is the same in competing versus when you were in, like, or when you're training to compete? Is that your brain just took a dump? Your inner strength, right? What we were talking about earlier. Do you find that translates 1-to-1, or do you have to make adjustments on it?
So I say that translates 1-to-1 in regards to. There might be some days where, I mean, this is just an example, but like you might be shooting really good one day, and then like you might be making stupid mistakes the other day, and it's like by making those correct small habits of positive reinforcement, grace, and no slack, not slacking, like you said, all of these small little habits that you try to implement in shooting. If you're having a bad day, then that inner strength can come out through those habits. And even though that might not necessarily help you improve shooting right away, that during that moment, I mean, it'll still help understand the situation, and to kind of learn how to overcome it, and just understand that you're not going to have perfect days every day.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great line. You're not going to have perfect days every day. So true. You have to be able to step off sometimes and just go, you know what, today sucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even just so example, like I was shooting with Nate, and every single time I missed a target or did like screwed up something small, I always shook my head, and he's like, "Nope, you don't have enough time to shake your head." And I started thinking about it, it's like all that is doing is that's just ingraining in your head, like you're pronouncing your failures or your mistake, and you don't necessarily want to do that. You want to acknowledge your mistakes, but you don't want to necessarily dwell on those mistakes to have that inhibit your progress later on. So it's like understand it's there, but don't give attention toward it.
Yeah, yeah. I have a similar problem when I'm doing jujitsu and I get caught by a move that like I know it's coming and I got caught by it anyway, and I'm like, dang it, as I'm like getting thrown around. But you're right. It's that instance of you're taking the second to recognize that you did it wrong. And that's it. You're not actually going, why did I do it wrong? Or, maybe my trigger pull was just off a little bit that day, or maybe I flinched a little bit, or maybe I put myself in that. Why did I put myself in that move? But the ability to learn, to stop, or not stop, but to be able to learn on the fly as you're going is that's a tough skill. So what does the tactical games look like? Because, I mean, I've seen it, but for anybody that hasn't, what kind of events are you going to be running in? What are you going to be doing?
So I'm definitely have the mindset of going into it blindly. So I don't know necessarily each, because I think the tactical games has different events for different or different workouts and different strings of fire for each event. So I think for the most part, though, it involves physical activities such as running, carrying weight, lifting things that's practical toward combat. And then once you get done with overexerting yourself through energy, that's when you try and line up a shot and shoot as best as you can, and you just keep repeating that. So I basically, I mean, from what I understand, it's CrossFit with shooting.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I was never a big fan of CrossFit to begin with, but man, add shooting into that.
Yeah, especially talking to someone that loves to lift and gain muscle, and it's like CrossFit, and it's like, oh, that's repulsive. No, I'm joking. I mean, CrossFit's definitely awesome to improve your cardiovascular skill and just to get lean and overall fit. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, ooh, that does not sound fun to me at all. But I mean, once you add shooting in there, it's like, okay, yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You're like, you know what? I'll allow it. I will allow this. You just got to dive in. When is your? Have you done any competing yet, or is this like your first one?
No, so this is gonna be my first one. Right now, I'm trying to work out through school which event is gonna work best for me. Because I want to try and just book up all my school summer semester next year, and then just keep going through school each summer. So it's kind of, I have to work my schedule around to see which event's going to work for me, but it looks like I'll be competing in my first event May, kind of middle of May. So it's coming up.
Sweet.
And like I said, for my mindset, I definitely tend to overthink things and overanalyze things. So going into it blindly, I think is somewhat of a good idea for me, just so I'm like not building up that stress as the event comes up, and just to take it the best I can and react, kind of walk step by step through it and do the best I can.
I just a thought off the top of my head here, but I don't know if blindly is the correct terminology we've been using. I think perhaps maybe that it's going into it open, because you're not being focused and you're not being blind. Obviously, you have a general idea what's going to happen, right? But interesting. That kind of...
No, I like that. That's a better analogy of going into it open, where you're open to the experiences of what it's going to throw at you. Yeah, I like that a lot more, because like blindly isn't necessarily the most accurate word of saying that.
Yeah, it was itching at the back of my head. I'm like, are we actually going in blindly to things? Not particularly, because we have a general idea what's happening, but openness is definitely a good assessment of what's going on. So what do you got? What's the plan? Are you? I mean, you're still pretty young, but I'm still young as well. What do you hope to do in the next? What do you want to be when you grow up? Let me put it that way.
An astronaut. No. So for the next 20, 30 years, the goal is to continue working with Nate to do the tactical games, and then I do want to get into the private contracting industry. Don't really know much about it, so it's definitely it's going to take a while to kind of understand in depth of what everything, like the ins and outs of it, and then different contracts that are available during that time. But I want at least to start that, just to have some extra money on the side if I have like some spring break, summer break, or break off work to go and do that stuff. And then for an actual career, it's either going to be pursuing electrical engineering career through either Lockheed Martin, which is huge contractor that contracts out to the government, and they go from defense, missile systems, lasers, I mean, everything from there to rockets, spaceships. So either that, or there's L3 Harris, which kind of more specializes toward night vision, optics, thermals, IR lasers. So I want to either try and work for that. If I do pursue that electrical engineering career, I'm definitely getting my degree though. And then it's either there or opening up my own gun store / tactical business. If that's like on the side hustle or being my full-time job. And then I'm also entertaining the thought of going back into the Marine Corps once I get done with college as a officer.
And what kind of officer? Do you want to go back in the same trade, or did you like want to switch to something else?
I definitely want to switch toward being more of a infantry-centered officer. Obviously, I mean, as an enlisted guy, you look at the officers, and the officers don't have too great of a rapport with enlisted. But I looked at that and I was like, you know what, like I saw what I didn't like in officers, and that's the best way to improve, seeing leadership that you don't like and to improve on that, and seeing leadership that you do like and amplifying that to your character and your leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, so, and I also, the biggest reason I would want to go as like an infantry centered officer is you hear all these people say, what are you going to do when you get out if you're infantry? And this and that. And it's like, I've learned that the people that it doesn't necessarily matter your MOS. All it matters is your motivation and how hard you put your effort into after you get out of. I mean, there's some infantry dudes that got out and they're doing some awesome jobs, super technical. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
just that mindset should not allow people to inhibit their progress just because they were something in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I was a teenager in the past. Do I need to be a teenager now? No.
Yeah, no.
I was a combat engineer in the past. Okay, I don't need to be a combat engineer right now. And honestly, I really don't want to go looking through a minefield
Yeah.
at this point in time. I'm okay now. Back when I was 20, sure, lots of fun. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And the skill sets that you learn, I think this happens a lot in Canada too. We hear this where guys will get out and they'll be like, oh, all I know how to do is shoot guns and run. And you're like, really? That's all you know how to do? Right? That's every day. That's what you showed up at your unit, hung out every day. You ran and you shot guns. That was it. And it's like, well, I mean, not really. Exactly. You have skill sets. You have, I even brought up the point of like, how do you do a recce? And they would be like, oh, well, you do this and you do that. And you set up your little group, and then you send guys out here, and then you go like here, and blah 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 blah. I'm like, okay, so you didn't just shoot guns and run. How do you apply that to everyday life? You want to start a business? I found out that writing a business plan is a set of orders.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know how to write a set of orders, you can write a business plan. That same tenacity that makes you a good infantier or a good engineer or a good marine or a good whatever is going to serve you in being whatever you want to be afterwards. That's the best part, is like you get to choose this time versus,
Yeah.
right? So if you went into like Lockheed Martin, if you went into one of those engineering areas, would you just be doing kind of the same thing you were doing while you're in the Marine Corps?
So it'd be more specialized. So instead of repairing optics, circuit cards, resoldering lines, it would be more designing new technology to be used. So I think that's pretty sweet, because then
Yeah.
I'm definitely a heavy user of night vision, and I'm trying to get in the thermal game a little bit so I can apply my user knowledge to future products to be like, hey, this was like what really works, and this doesn't necessarily work too well. Because I mean, there's a lot of times you think like engineers working on certain pieces of equipment, they're not necessarily super driven and look at the object they're working on as like a passion of theirs. Like, sure, engineering might be a passion, or they could just look at it as a job, but like the actual piece of equipment they're working on, their passion might not transfer over to that. So I feel like I can apply that to night vision, thermals, all of that, and like have that passion toward equipment that I'm making, and make it that much better and user friendly.
That's a good idea. Do you have any like things that are on the top of your head where you're like, I need to fix that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I want to, and this is just a side hustle that I want to do just for myself, but the quad nods are outrageous for what they are, and they're just for image intensifiers, which, I mean, those are pretty expensive. You can find them ranging, depending on which generation, either Gen 2 through Gen 3 plus. I mean, 4,000 maybe, 3,000 if you get lucky, but that's only math. $12,000. Yeah, that's only $12,000, and then yet they're selling these quad nods for 40,000. So it's like, I want to try and think there's a great business opportunity there to make some style quad nod that's a lot cheaper.
So you're saying it's an image intensifier. Like, now I'm a little old school because all I ever used was the the monocular that you have absolutely no depth perception, and
oh yeah,
I freaking hated walking around with that thing, and the fact that it's like 4 pounds and keeps your helmet completely like I
Yeah.
can't see anything anyway.
oh yeah.
What do you mean by an image enhancer? What's the difference?
So the image intensifier is, explain it simple, it's the heart of the all night vision. So there's two different types of night vision. There's digital, and then there's analog, I think. I might be wrong. But basically one is like a camera where you basically take a picture or a video and the image is transferred through actual screen, like a little small TV, I guess you could say, in the optic you're looking through, and there's going to be a delay from what the image is seeing to the output of the image to your eye. So that's why military doesn't necessarily use that, because there's such an output or a difference of time delay that it definitely messes up cognitive function a little bit. So then the other one, which is what the military uses, is they have an image intensifier. So it's a tube with the system, and it's basically the heart of the optic. So it's what converts the light into what the image sees. I mean, there's a whole different chambers within it that flip the image and twist it 180 degrees and all of that. But basically, it's just it's what converts and multiplies the light that it sees to the output image.
Okay, so the quad nods are basically just souped up, like a souped up monocular with a little bit more depth perception.
Oh yeah, seriously, all it is the same heart of the PBS-14 that you were using with the new housing. That's it.
Oh.
I mean, there's a little bit smaller variations, but to put it simple, I mean, it's super basic.
Yeah. Okay. The night vision and the technical side of like radios and all that stuff, I was never big on, but I was pretty good at CMD, and like I had a pretty good understanding of how the munitions worked. But yeah, the lasers and stuff, it was always just like
yeah. Even
way above me.
I know the very basics, but once you really start getting into the depths of scientific philosophies and analogies of like the Saber system, how we tried going over this in the schoolhouse of like where the like missile knows where it's going by where it's not going, and then there's this huge paragraph on like how the missile basically determines where it's going with the reticle and how it follows that reticle. And I'm just like, nope. Mind blown. I'm not like, I'll attempt it, but like, what the fuck am I reading?
You're just sitting there like this. Okay. Yeah. That's a great point, though, that you brought up in terms of digital versus analog, or digital versus
optical. I think I might be wrong in that. It's some terminology, but yeah, it's...
Yeah. But there's a lag, right? That's what the issue is that there's a lag between the image processing and actually showing the person.
Yeah.
To make a decision, and then...
And a lot of people say, like, oh, well, my digital night vision's only $300 instead of the other military night vision that's $6,000. And it's like, yeah, but like, you're not getting the image quality, and then also it's the biggest thing is that delay that's there, because there's no delay within the traditional military night vision, which, I mean, it definitely, you still get some eye fatigue with the green color if you have green phosphor tubes. But yeah, I mean, it's once you add the color variation, and then if there's a delay, I mean, you try and see these people walk around with digital night vision, and they can get used to it, but if they put on digital night vision for the first time, they're stumbling around, kind of like looking funky.
That's a great analogy, though. Actually, if you think about it, is your the way in which you are. Let me rephrase this: the lenses in which you are looking at the world in will affect the way you actually interact with the world in and of itself.
Okay, yeah.
So if you have like, your rose-colored glasses on and everything is fucking wonderful and it's great and it's easy, that is going to give you a delay, right? Because even if you see something that's horrible, then you're going to try and like, wait a second, no, it's supposed to be rose-colored. Uh-oh. And then it's not. And then you have to rethink it. And then so you're going to have that I don't know, emotional, psychological lag on your decision-making processes.
Yeah, no, I like
think
that. And if you have like a lens that kind of has a positive mindset, but also confronts the realities of life and understands that life can get nitty and gritty sometimes, then there's that, I would say, for an analogy of a clear lens that you're viewing the world, and you don't necessarily have to stop and have contradictions with that lens as much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's I think I'm going to start using that.
Yeah, I like
Digital
that.
or analog. That's really nice. So now, if anybody, I was just going to say, my brain just died. There you go. I had a thought, gone. What do you think we need to? What do you think we need to do, society-wise, like from your view, to keep the mindset of mental toughness, mental resilience, inner strength, whatever you want to call it? How do you think we build that as a society? I know this is a big question, but
Yeah,
what do you
this
think?
is a tough one. Oh shoot. Okay, so I would say the biggest thing that I see right now, and this isn't just applied to Canada, the US, I mean this applies to the world, is to not focus on what makes you feel good and what necessarily thoughts are like, well, I don't like that, so I'm gonna reject that. I think being open to different viewpoints, different analogies, different thought processes, and understanding that you can make positive situations out of really shitty situations, I think is the first step. Because if you there's a lot of people out there that definitely have a idea of like, I don't like it, I'm gonna reject it, type mindset. And so with that, it's really dangerous because then that starts skewing and shifting their lens of life, where if something doesn't necessarily, if they don't like what they're hearing, then they don't have that process of sitting down and like, well, why do I not like it? Could that other person be right? It's always, no, you're wrong, and that inhibits self-growth and self-character. And the buildup of self-character kind of, I think, goes hand in hand with self-strength.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's that's a very astute look at it. And as we were just saying, that you used that analogy perfectly. Was the lens is that if you are, you want to spend less money or less time or less effort or less whatever on something that is simple, that kind of works, there's going to be a lag time. There's going to be an inability to process what's actually happening because you're looking at it in a skewed manner, or you're looking at it with a delay. I think that's awesome. And the ability to see things clearly. And you know what? Actually, it goes back to what you were talking about earlier. You're not going in blindly, you're going in open.
Mm-hmm.
And you got an open reticle. How many, do you ever, that PVS 14, is it 14 PVS 14? I can never remember the actual.
Yeah. So if it's that monocular, it's PVS 14.
You know how they had the cap on it with like the little open hole that so you could like focus on things? It's like that. You take your lens off, you're like, bang, oh wow, I can see everything, but sometimes you have to put it on to be like focused.
Sure, yeah. I like that analogy also. Dang.
Dropping knowledge bombs.
Yeah. Mind blown. But also, I mean, I would say another big thing I was just thinking about is another thing that like people can do to increase their personal and inner strength is just to make their life a little more difficult. And that's not like, well, I'm gonna wake up and start punching myself in the face until I feel bad. It's like, no, like if that's like, I mean, shoot, like I'm gonna wake up and take a cold shower today. And it's like, what is a cold shower gonna necessarily do? Like, it might have some sort of health benefit. I mean, it probably is small enough not to notice, but I think the biggest thing is preparing your mind of like, I'm gonna take this cold shower to understand that things aren't going to be comfortable in life today, and that you still just work through it. And then if that's like, again, like going to the gym of like, hey, like I haven't worked out in 2 years or like 3 years. I might wait until next year to start going, or I'm going to start my diet in a week, and it keeps kind of compounding. It's like, I'm going to go today and just make my life a little bit worse. And I wouldn't even say worse, but like basically add stressors and difficulty into your life that you can overcome, and you slowly just keep building that up until you're a stronger person.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how many times I've done this in my life throughout everything where you kind of think right before you're about to do it, you're like, this is going to suck. And off you go. You just,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
You just kind of have to accept that this is not going to be fun and smash your way through it. And whether that's a cold shower in the morning or, making your bed first thing in the morning or pushing yourself to do a marathon or starting training, getting back into the gym. And that was another one. So I got a herniated disc in my back, and it sucks. Whatever, there's pain. But I went back to the gym for the first time after I got out back in, I think it was maybe 14 or something like that. I got out in the end of 12. So I went to the gym and I started lifting the way that I always did when I was in the Army. And that didn't work. Right, like I immediately hurt myself, and then I was like, I can't do this shit anymore. I'm just not going to do it. And then a couple weeks later, I'm like, yeah, no, I gotta get back in there. I can't just sit out here doing nothing. Starting to get fat. My pants don't fit. This isn't okay. And I knew going in there, this is going to suck. Did it again, and I just went to it like I used to. Hurt myself again. Until you get to a mindset where you're like, okay, I got to start over. Like, get your ego right out of the way. Just be like, okay, somebody teach me how to lift properly, or in a way in which I can still lift with the pain. And so I went and saw a couple trainers, and they helped me get like the mindset. But I went into it going, this is gonna suck.
But I mean, okay. The most important thing is, you adapted to your situation. You kind of overcame that hardship and that difficulty, knowing it was going to suck, but you still did it anyway, which...
There's just those days sometimes, too. Sometimes the day is the hardest part, right? When you're just... the day... I mean, I got 2 little boys, and some days I want to... I just want to, like, throw my hands up and be like, what in the hell happened? I don't even know what's happening right now. But that's just the way it is. And sometimes the days are hard. Sometimes they're easy. And if they are easy, make them a little harder. Just for fun.
And I would say even like if people aren't used to kind of living in like kind of having uncomfortable situations, it's going to feel really foreign at first of like, oh, like my like muscles are burning. That's really weird. I don't think that's right. And you just keep doing that until I would say you get comfortable in the uncomfortable. Where it's like, okay, well, this is going to suck, but I'm ready. I'm used to it. I've been doing it every day. Like it's no sweat off my back.
Mm-hmm. When I go hunting, I have there's this, there's a piece of land that my family owns that I go hunting on regularly. And, it's right in the base of this valley in the U-shaped hills. It goes all the way around it. So you have this really beautiful valley, and I set up my camp right in the base of it. And then first thing in the morning, you wake up opening day and it's still dark out. It's cold. You get your stuff on. Everything about it sucks because you have to get out of your warm sleeping bag. You have to put on cold clothes. You got to tie your boots up. You got to get something to eat. It's still pitch black. You can't see anything. And then I have to walk up this hill, which is like, it's deceptive because it's like 30 degrees, 35 degrees, something like that. It's not a huge slant, but it's long and it takes forever to walk up. And you just, because I'm snaking all the way up there because I don't want to sweat too much. And every so often you look up and you're like, oh, God damn.
Yeah.
But then you look down and you're like, oh, okay, I've made some good distance. And then you keep walking. But every piece of it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Until you get to the top and you sit down and you get to watch the sunrise come over the hills. And then you're like, yeah, right. And every year, doesn't matter. Every year I go down there, it still sucks.
Yeah. Oh, don't mention, especially the next day when you wake up and your legs are super sore and you're like, yep, got to do the same walk all over again.
Yeah, all the way up that hill. But yeah, it's a great way of putting it. Is sometimes things are going to suck, and you just got to put your head down and like, all right, let's see what happens.
Mhm. Yeah, especially, I mean, even for when we were doing our hikes when I was in the Marine Corps, I mean, we usually had them where it was like kind of ramp up. So the first hike was 3 miles, the next hike was 6, the next was 9. But when we start getting like the 9 to 15 range mile hikes, it's like you just sit there. And I had these gloves that every single time I put them on, I know it was gonna suck. Like those are my suck gloves. So it's like, you know what? I'm gonna make sure I'm prepared. I'm gonna put my gloves on, and I'm just gonna automatically know this hike is going to suck. And so it's like, I mean, even when it sucked, you still can have a positive mindset. And I was always cracking jokes. Like all of my buddies that were in front of me were like, "Hey, like, are you familiar with the dump truck industry?" And they turned around like, "Varner, shut up." And I was like, "You got a fat load back there." I mean, just cracking jokes, just stupid. But it's like, I think also having a positive mindset, and even sometimes just cracking jokes to break up that kind of stressful and intense environment can always be helpful and great to take the stress and pressure off of that hard time.
Yeah, that is. I can't say how awesome that is. We were in Wainwright, so it's the training area that everybody knows here in Canada because everybody has to go to Wainwright. It is not a great place to be, and it's it's in the prairies, so it's cold, windy. There's rare, and if it's warm, it's like hot, kind of like there's never like a comfortable temperature to be in Wainwright. It just always sucks. And I remember being there on a course with a buddy of mine, and we were sitting. It was that really horrible time where it's cloudy, but the sun kind of breaks through it every once in a while. It wasn't raining, but it was cold enough that you had to have a jacket on, but not cold enough that you wanted a jacket on.
Yeah.
And it was a bad day all around. And we were sitting waiting for orders, and we were sitting on the side of this hill, and all of a sudden, the two of us got hit by a sunbeam. And we were just like, oh, everything's warm again. Just for that, like, 2 or 3 seconds. And we're like, okay. And I looked over at my buddy, and I'm like, hey, man, small victories from Wainwright. And that sometimes you just got to look for them, right? There's little things that you're like, okay, this was nice. Check it off the box. We had a small victory today, right? The next day, I think he saw a chipmunk. It just like rolled up to him and took one of his pieces of his MRE or something like that, and then fucked off again. And we were just like, cool, that was neat. Back to the suck fest. But being able to, like, yeah, it sucks, but find something. There's always something fun. There's always something little that you can go, ha, yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising, especially when people were like, I can imagine the kind of thought of like, well, it's something small versus something huge that's weighing you down, that something small can't necessarily get you through it. But it's surprising, like something super small in your day, you can hold on to and really help you get through some really, really hard times, especially like boot camp when I got like a letter from my mom and dad I think it was like one letter a week. Like that small letter got me through a lot of shit where it's like you'd be surprised of how small something can actually impact you in a major way.
Oh yeah. It reminds me when I was in Afghanistan, my mom sent me a pack it's like a 2-pack of really cheap Walmart socks, just white cotton socks, right? But she sent me 100 of them. So I had tons of socks, right? What it allowed me to do, though, was every morning I put on a brand new pair of socks. Like, not old, dirty, nasty socks that I've been washing and blah, blah, blah. I had one, as soon as I took them off at the end of the night, garbage, right? I had a brand new pair of socks the next morning. Or if I need, like, at all, if I just needed to switch socks, brand new pair of socks. And just that feeling alone was so nice. Because, there's something about a brand new pair of socks, right? Like,
oh yeah, I mean, you put your feet in them and you're like, yes, that's what it is.
Yeah, right there. And it's a tiny little thing, but when you're out there and everything else sucks, you have to find that one thing. And man, those socks were it for me. So,
and I think honestly, what we're hitting on, and I've definitely learned this, is when you put yourself in hard times, or when you find yourself in hard times, usually in most cases, you will start to be more appreciative of the small things in life. Because I know when I was on my kind of booze cruise deployments, just being able to wash my clothes without sitting in a 3-hour line was like, man, like that would be nice. And you get home and it's like so much joy was brought to just walking to the washer and dryer, putting my clothes in without waiting, and then just kind of walking away. And it's like super small. I mean, not necessarily super tense, but it's just the small things that you really start to understand and appreciate a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. My big one when I got home was tap water.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. Like, it just tastes different, obviously, and we've been drinking bottled water for so long that I was just like, I can drink water from the tap.
It's like, what is this? Yes.
This is amazing. So we've been rolling for a little bit over an hour here, brother, and it has been my pleasure having you on here. This has been such a great chat. I really wanted to thank you. Is there anything that, off the top of your head, you're burning to get across about inner strength or resiliency, or do you think we hit all the markers?
I think we definitely hit the majority of it for sure. I would just say there's really no right or wrong answer to inner strength. It's just having, I think, the willpower to keep trying, even though things might seem like they're going wrong, and just holding on to something small is all you can really do, for sure. And I want to say thank you so much. I mean, it was a honor to be on your show, and I absolutely loved it, and got to expand and build, put some tools in my toolbox also, for sure.
Well, that's what it's all about, man. And
yeah.
The whole reason I got it started was all it takes is a conversation sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the whole point. And I can't thank you enough. If anybody wanted to follow you, find you, support your journey in any way, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, so I haven't posted my Instagram in a while, but that's going to change once we start rolling with the training videos, me and Nate. So I'm going to be posting a lot more than that, but my Instagram is Chase1739. And then, I mean, shoot, if you have any questions for me, if someone's listening, you can honestly add me on Facebook, Chase, C-H-A-C, Varner, V-A-R-N-E-R, and just ask me questions, talk. I'm always here for anyone if they need help. Like I said, I've lost a lot of people to hard times, and I want to be an advocate just to be there for people. And it doesn't necessarily mean like we know each other super well. It's like it could just be some random person like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Do you have any experience with it? And I would absolutely love to help any way I can.
Mm-hmm. This is the way, right? This is how we build each other up. Is we just, if I don't know, I know a guy who does, or I know a guy who knows a guy who does, or whatever, right? Sometimes you just need to be able to shoot the shit and talk about stupid stuff. I know when I got out of the Army, one of the first things I did was I called my buddies that were still in. So anytime I had this little itch of like, oh, I kind of miss the Army, I'd call one of my buddies that was still in and be like, hey, man, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm filling out some stupid fucking paperwork. And I'd be like, cool, man, thanks. That's all I needed.
Oh, yeah. No, I do the same thing. I call my buddy that's still in every day about, and every single time, I have this inspection and this is coming up. And I was just like, yeah, all right, well, it sounds like you're having a rough time. I'll let you handle your stuff, and I'll call you back later,
I love it.
That concludes this episode of The Toolbox. I really appreciate y'all listening. It has been my pleasure bringing you this awesome guest. If you like what you heard, please like, share, subscribe, and do all that awesome stuff. And I hope you can use some of the information that was offered. To all those putting on the line every day, first responders, military, veterans, civil servants, you guys are keeping us safe and keeping the country running. I really appreciate y'all. Hope to see you next time. Till then, stay open, stay humble, and stay focused. Shimo.